be livelier than the ones in the library and stuff.
Oh, definitely. Although you never know. You never know if we come out.
Not only is it seeing him live stream, so he is actually talking in real time, he's just not physically right in front of us. And then like tonight we have a DJ and BYOB and just kind of a casual coming together where we cannot feel like we're in a conference and we can't move, and it's kind of just your friends and your neighbors and talking about the issues that you don't really talk about at work or school.
I am supporting Bernie for president for 2016. I'm excited to see someone who really inspires passion in me in politics for the first time in a long time. Someone who I think can make real positive change and take the country in a direction that I think we really ought to be going.
We're out to see Bernie.
Yeah, we came to get involved.
It's really important to get people involved. If people are going to take the government back from the control of the government, back from the corporations, people have to get involved and stop doing all the other little sideline things we do at night and devote a little bit more attention to our future.
It's the first time I'm going to vote in America. I've been living here in 15 years and I'm finally a US citizen. So it's my first presidential campaign where I can actually vote, and I am delighted to have a man who actually cares about the people.
Sort of women's rights, reproductive rights, and I know that Bernie stands behind those issues. I also really care about the environment, so that's something I'm taking into account.
I'm jumping on the environment train. I grew up surrounded by national parks and protected lands and also not protected lands, and kind of seeing the divide it creates. So that's one of my bigger ones. It's kind of been a main driving point throughout my whole life, so it's home.
I think events like this are really important to show people that there are other people who think the same way that you do, to bring people together and to start to build a movement. To do anything meaningful in politics, I think you need to bring people together, and that's what this does.
It's contagious, the grassroots movement of it all, because it's just me telling her, we should check this guy out, and it spreads and spreads, and I think it can cause a movement.
I just wanted to welcome you all tonight. My name is David Fairbanks. And I just want to welcome you to the Main Street Museum in White River Junction. How many of you have been here before? Half of you. For those of you who have not been here, we have a guest book. We do events all summer. We're about to do a big Russian event on Friday. So the cases that are all around you that are unfinished, that will be finished, I hope, by Friday. The Matryoshkas, the things about Khrushchev and Kennedy, all those are all about our Russian show. And Cuba is very much in the air this time, in this year, in this very special year, for Cuba-American relations. And we had planned to do a Cuba show 2 years ago, so it's very timely that we're presenting artifacts from Cuba brought here by my Russian friends from St. Petersburg. In any event, we're also available for parties, for weddings, etc. Getting some feedback. So do sign up for all of our events that we're doing throughout the summer. We have some fans on. I apologize for the heat. We are doing lots of fundraising through the fall, and eventually we'll have an air conditioning system installed in here. Round of applause for the air conditioning system. Before Bernie speaks, I want to speak, and I promise I'll speak for just a tiny, tiny amount of time. And I want to talk about Vermont politics. I grew up in Boston, lived and worked in New York for 10 years, but my family's from here. My mother was born in Woodstock, Vermont. My uncle was actually sort of a hero in our family. When I was growing up, my uncle was from Vermont. He's a native Vermonter. He went to Italy during World War II, the Great Patriotic War. He went to World War II, and he served the Battle of Cassini. He was blown up in a Jeep. He got the Purple Heart, things like that. He was really our hero, but he was also 18 when he went to Italy, when he was at the Battle of Cassino, Monte Cassino. So he was so young, and he did so much for this country. He came back to the United States, he decided he would go into politics. He became the Speaker of the House for the state of Vermont. Now, in the early 60s, which is when he became Speaker of the House, Vermont was changing. We were not always such a progressive state, and in some ways we can get more progressive even than we are currently. But in the 1960s, we were told by the federal courts we would have to reapportion our Senate. Now, in simple terms, that means that in Vermont, we had a Senate that was made up of one senator for each town. So you had Avery's Gore, or you had Hancock, Vermont, and they had 30 people in them. And that had one senator. Those entities had one senator. And then Burlington, with all the people in Burlington, they also got one senator. This is not democratic. Do we get that this is having one senator for each town is not democratic because it's not based on population. It's not based on the people that are there. So since we were going to, have the federal courts do it for us, there was a brand new governor in Vermont. He was the first Democratic governor in 150 years. His name was Phil Hoff. And that really transformed, yay for Phil Hoff. He transformed the state of Vermont just by being elected. And that he got elected just by getting people out there to elect him. That's why voting is so important. But when he got in as governor, we knew we were going to have to reapportion. We were going to have to really radically change politics in the state of Vermont because it couldn't go on the way it was going. Phil Hoff said he needed someone like my uncle. Now, my uncle was also very progressive. Phil Hoff was very much interested in civil rights. He was very progressive. My uncle believed in, a woman's right to, make decisions about her own body. He believed very strongly in civil unions. When they came around, he believed in protecting the environment, rights of the workplace, workers. But I've got a dark family secret that I want to reveal about my uncle now. And I don't often say this, and I'm going to reveal it just to you here tonight. My uncle, Speaker of the House of Vermont, was a Republican. No. Yes, no, he really was. But you see, Republicans were different back then, and I shouldn't have to be ashamed of the fact that my uncle was a Republican, but he was. Things have changed. And what my uncle did was he worked across party lines. In other words, he was able to talk to progressive Democrats because he was progressive. He was able to talk to independents. He was from a town, and he wore a nice suit every day, and he had black shiny shoes. But he went to some of these senators' homes, and they were farmers, and he went into their barn, and when there was a cow flop, that's what my grandma called it, a cow flop in the barn path, you just kick it into the trough. And that impressed people, because he was able to talk to people. He wasn't afraid of getting, pardon my French, some shit on his shoes. So that's another reason why he was my hero, is because when he came in, he was able to talk to some of these older, more conservative Republican types, and they did it. They took the state of Vermont and they made it apportioned. In other words, now we have senators from districts, and the senators represent numbers of people. They don't just represent a town. So what my uncle did, and I don't think Phil Hoff could have done it without my uncle, was he made Vermont more democratic. And that's what we all want to do on the national level, right? We want to make our country more democratic. Because whenever you would just allow people to get out there and make their opinions heard in a voting booth, you're doing a good thing for the state. You're doing a good thing for the United States of America. Anyway, Bernie Sanders has seen the Main Street Museum. He's liked it. It was in a booth up at the History Expo up at Tunbridge. He has given a speech. I've heard his speeches on numerous occasions, and when people work with political campaigns, they often say, well, the candidate, often they call him the candidate, and you just turn it into a thing, you put him up there in a microphone, he's going to give the speech. Because you go to a Grange Hall, and you go to a Legion Hall, and you go to the Knights of Columbus, and you give the speech. But with Bernie Sanders, for 20 years or more, the candidate is given the speech, and Bernie Sanders gives the same speech, but you never get tired of hearing him because he's such a good public speaker, and he's getting even better and better. To hear him in Louisiana is amazing. To hear him in Texas is amazing. But also, he's just, you never get tired of hearing the speech. And then, the other thing about Bernie Sanders that we all know is he hasn't changed what he's said for the past 30 years. He's said the same thing for the past 30 goddamn years. It hasn't changed. So, when I was a kid, I really thought my uncle was my hero, but I really think now Bernie Sanders is my hero. And I hope you all get out there and vote or do whatever or raise awareness or just volunteer, because even, elections matter a lot, but talking about things also matters a lot. And I'm happy that Ashley has helped me with this. Our friend Matt has helped me with this. And a whole bunch of other people out there. Thank you, CATV, for coming. I also want to thank Marky Merrill for being the tech guy tonight, and Tim Duggan. They've done a great job with tech. They've been awesome. And we still have a little bit of ways to go to 7:30. I think it's actually cooler inside than outside. So as soon as he comes on, he's going to appear on that screen. But thank you all very much, and I'll be handing out membership cards in just a minute. Yeah, does anybody else want to say anything now before we start? Why don't I introduce Ashley, who's going to introduce the projection of the next President of the United States, Bernie Sanders.
Hi guys, I'm Ashley. I'm a work-study student at CCV in Wilder here, and I've been very politically drawn my entire life, and I would say, what? Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I've been very politically drawn my entire life. I'm from Pennsylvania, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and I would say 90% of the time I've sounded like a complete idiot because I had no facts or candidates to back up my ideas on why things are wrong. So Bernie Sanders really inspires me because he just says exactly the most obvious truth of why things are wrong, and a lot of it is money and corporations and greed, and it's destroying the future of my children, so I don't like it. And Bernie Sanders is willing to stand up and fight for me and for all of you and for our children. So I'm very proud to host this event. I got an email from the campaign about hosting an event. I thought I was gonna have 10 people in my living room on a laptop screen watching this, and I very quickly found out that that was not going to be the case. So thank you guys all so much for coming here. This is mind-blowing to me, and you're all awesome. So thank you, and feel the burn!
Jobs to cobble together an income and some health care. Enough is enough. We cannot continue to maintain a starvation minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. It is wrong that people are working 40 or 50 hours a week and still living in poverty. Enough is enough. We've got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. We cannot continue to have real unemployment at over 10% in this country. We cannot continue to have a horrendous situation where 35-40% of our young people who are high school graduates are unemployed or underemployed. It seems to me that just maybe, instead of having the highest rate of incarceration of any major country on earth, instead of throwing our kids in jail, maybe we should provide them with education and jobs. Just maybe. Maybe, just maybe, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we should not have a situation where hundreds of thousands of bright and capable young people are unable to afford to go to college. They have the ability, they have the desire, they just don't have the money. And enough is enough when millions of people leave school deeply in debt with interest rates of 7, 8, 10%. Enough is enough, and that is why we must make sure that public colleges and public universities in America are tuition free. Enough is enough, as Kemi said. We are tired. We are tired of seeing black women yanked out of a car, thrown to the ground, assaulted, put in handcuffs, and then sent to jail, and died 3 days later in the case of Sandra Bland. For what crime? She didn't signal that she made a left turn. And we're seeing that all over this country. Enough is enough. We have got to combat institutional racism in the United States. Enough is enough. In this great nation, we need a campaign finance system that creates a vibrant democracy, not a campaign finance system that allows billionaires to buy politicians as a result of the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Enough is enough. We are going to overturn Citizens United. We are going to appoint nominees to the Supreme Court who will tell us loudly and clearly that Citizens United is going to end. Enough is enough. 11 million undocumented people in this country. People who are now living in the shadows. They need a path toward citizenship. They cannot, these people cannot continue to be exploited. Their families cannot continue to be broken up. We will fight for a path towards citizenship and comprehensive immigration reform. Enough is enough. The United States of America, our great country, cannot be the only major industrialized nation that does not guarantee health care to all of our people as a right. And that has got to change, and it will change through a Medicare for all single-payer system. And enough is enough. The United States cannot continue to be the only major country without a medical and family leave policy. When a woman has a baby in this country, regardless of her income, she has the right to stay home with that baby. The father has a right to stay home for that baby. We also need paid, guaranteed sick time and vacation time for our workers as well. I don't have to tell anybody that these are very, very difficult times in America. And as I have said over and over again, Bernie Sanders alone, as President of the United States, is not going to solve all of these problems. The only way we take on the Koch brothers, the only way we take on the billionaire class in corporate America, and these people who have unbelievable amounts of money and power, the only way I know that we do that is when we put together a strong grassroots movement of millions and millions of people. And that is what I mean by a political revolution, and that is what you are involved in today. Now, they have the power, they control a lot of the media. All of that is true, and this struggle is a tough struggle. But I believe from the bottom of my heart, when millions of people stand together, when we overcome race issues, when we overcome questions of whether somebody was born in America or not, when we overcome issues of sexual orientation or gender issues, when we don't let our opponents divide us up by race or sexual orientation, all that stuff, when we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. That's what that is what this political revolution is about. So together, it's not just me, it's all of you. We need your help knocking on doors. We need your help making phone calls. We need your help to talk to your brothers and your sisters, your co-workers, your family members. Bring them into the movement. And when we do all of that, we are going to make history in November 2016. Thank you so much for participating.
personally fight you and you win. And I predict you will win.
Thank you so much.
You
Thank you
absolutely
very
will.
much.
You will.
You just heard from Bernie about why we need a political revolution in this country. Now, let me tell you about how we're going to make that happen together. Our task is to translate this groundswell of support into a coordinated grassroots movement in all 50 states. Already, there are fantastic field campaigns underway in early primary states like Iowa and New Hampshire, with amazing organizers and local leaders who are working hard to win those primaries. But to win this election and build a real political revolution, we need to be everywhere. We need you to bring this movement to your community by doing unglamorous but essential work like knocking on doors, calling voters, voter registration, helping out with big campaign events like the ones that have made headlines in Madison and Phoenix, and hosting other events like the one that you're at tonight. Doing all of these things and more is how we're going to turn huge crowds and popular support for Bernie into winning. So everyone please take out your smartphone right now, and I want you to text the word WORK to the number 82623. That's WORK to 82623. Because after you sign up, in just a moment, we're going to put you to work. And if you don't have a smartphone, that's okay. Ask your host for a printed volunteer sign-up form, or go to berniesanders.com/work when you're in front of a computer. And everyone who has a smartphone, you should have just gotten the link to a volunteer sign-up form. Click on that link and start filling out that form now. All the things that I just mentioned, like knocking on doors and making phone calls, are listed there on that form. You can tell us what you're interested in doing, and also what role you'd like to play. We need some of you to step up and actually coordinate these volunteer activities in your communities, just as over 3,500 of you organized these extremely successful events tonight and turned out over 100,000 people between all of you. If you want to be a coordinator, we will give you how-to guides, support, training, and materials, so you won't be on your own. If you don't want to coordinate and you just want to help, that's okay too. And as you're filling out that form, let me tell you what comes next specifically. Starting tomorrow, we're going to reach out to everyone who filled out that form tonight and get you started doing this critical campaign work. If you're in an early primary state like Iowa or New Hampshire, we're going to plug you into the existing field campaigns in those states, and you'll be contacted by on-the-ground staff there. For everyone else, we're going to work with you to build out this movement in the rest of the country, just like we worked with over 3,500 of you to make tonight the biggest event of the 2016 election so far. And tonight is really a testament to just how much can happen in a volunteer-driven grassroots effort. And over the next 15 months, we're going to do a lot more together. So if you haven't yet, text WORK to 82623 or go to berniesanders.com/work. It's an honor to be with you in this movement, and we're so excited for what comes next. And now we're going to hear from Larry Cohen, past president of Communication Workers of America, who's going to close out our program.
Thanks, Claire. As Claire said, I'm Larry Cohen, and I'm a volunteer, like all of you, for Bernie Sanders. As Claire said as well, until a few weeks ago, I was the president of the Communication Workers of America, 700,000 working Americans. And 2 days after my term ended, I went to see Bernie and said, Bernie, I'm going to volunteer. And at that time I said 10 hours a week, and it's become more like 10 hours a day. But this is the same excitement and energy that so many of us who are holding these events are feeling across this country. As Bernie said, this is a political revolution, but we have to build it. It's not just about following Bernie. It's about what we're going to do in Waterloo or Council Bluffs, what we're going to do in Concord, New Hampshire, or in Manchester, what we're going to do in Charleston or Columbia, what we're going to do in Carson City and Las Vegas, and in every other state in the country. And tonight is our jump start. But it really does depend, as Claire said, on every single one of the more than 100,000 people texting right now to 82623, message WORK. And I'm committing that in the next 24 hours, I will get 3 more people to do that as well. 3 more people, 82623. If we each do that, we'll have another 500,000 people. This is how we build this. We can't build this through the staff of the campaign, as amazing as they are. We can't build it through this amazing leader that I've known for 20 years, who's been in the streets with us as well as in the Congress. who's there all the time for working Americans, regardless, as he said, of where we come from, or what job we do, or even where we live, far beyond Vermont. So I couldn't say more than this, really. It's all about our energy and our work, and what we're going to do tonight when we text, and what we're going to do tomorrow when we get 3 more, 82623. We can all feel this, not just in this room, but in 3,500 rooms. We're part of an historic moment, but our job is to build an historic movement. Thanks for joining us tonight, working with us in the days and months ahead. Solidarity and good night.